Well, welcome everybody. Welcome to reInvent 2025 and welcome to our session, The Agentic Advantage, How Partners Unlock AI's Full Potential. And yes, I did have to read that because it's a very long introduction. My name is Priya Arora. I am the go-to-market lead for Data and AI Partner Programs, and I'm joined today by Mark Ralph, our Director of Partner Data and AI Go-to-Market. So I'm really excited to be here. I have to share this is my third year presenting at reInvent, but there is a few firsts for me in this session. One, I have never done the silent session before, so hopefully you guys can all hear me, maybe wave. Thank you, awesome, I appreciate it. But what I'm told is we can't take Q&A. Mark and I, on the other hand, love to chat and we love to talk, so we're gonna hang out afterwards. If anybody does have any questions, please take your notes, come chat with us. We'd love to talk to each and every one of you. The second first for me is I've actually never presented this early in the week. And I'm pretty excited about it for this specific session because we're covering Agentic AI. And I'm gonna let you guys all in on a secret, but we might be talking a lot about that this week here at reInvent. So it's a good opportunity for Mark and I to set the stage a little bit. And our goal today is to cover a few things. We wanna talk about the role of Agentic AI and the AI evolution. So where we're come from and where we're going, and why do we think Agentic AI is such an important advancement in the AI evolution. We also wanna talk to you all about the role of partners. So out of curiosity, who in the audience are partners at AWS? Perfect. I'm going to assume the rest are customers. So we're going to talk a little bit about the role of partners, both from the partner perspective, about what do you need to do in your businesses, what are you seeing, or what do customers need from you. But for our customers in our room, we also want you to look around and understand the value that partners can bring for your businesses and your goals with Agentic AI. And then lastly, we're going to talk a little bit about our AWS programs that are made for our AWS partners. While these programs are made for our partners, they really also are there to benefit our customers and help our customers use partners in a way that supports their business. All right, so with that, a couple of things that we're going to do today. Mark and I are going to share a lot of our opinion, a lot of what we're seeing in the market, and a lot of our own observations. But we wanted to make sure to bring along the voice of the customer. So something you're going to be seeing a lot of in this presentation is data from our annual customer research on on AI and Agentic AI. So we actually run this survey every year. We provide it to our AWS partners for them to be able to make sure they have a pulse on what's going on in the market, but also to inform their strategy and their investments in AI and Agentic AI. So we've been running this for about 3 years. This year alone, we had 1,200 respondents. We have data from about 3,000 in total. And what's really cool about it is we keep a majority of the same questions, which means that we have a really interesting trend analysis. And we're going to show you some of that of where AI has been, where it's coming, and then we're also serving a lot of people that are at the early stages of their Agentic AI adoption, and so giving us a perspective of where they think it's heading or what they think they want from it. So with that, let's dive in a little bit. So I'm going to take us down a little bit of a journey back in time to 2023. So this is the first year that we ran the survey, and I think most of us do kind of remember 2023 as the year of Gen AI, I think. I know Gen AI has history that goes well beyond earlier than that, but it's really kind of when it made it into its mainstream everyday conversations. And what you see here is results from our first survey around what does AI adoption look like in the customer landscape. And what you see is a few interesting things. So this survey was released in October, and like I said, we kind of saw mainstream AI kind of interest started early in the year. By the end of the year, so in less than a year, you're seeing really almost every industry start to explore and test with Gen AI. What you do see though is a concentration in certain use cases. So when we look back to 2023, we saw a lot of people testing in the area of customer support, software development, and general productivity. Now the same exact data 2 years later. This is what this looks like in 2025. And it's really kind of exciting to see this evolution. And what you notice now, we're beyond the stage of testing, and there's really no industry, no use case that people aren't at least running POCs, piloting, or considering deployment of Gen AI in their processes. But another interesting thing here is that you're also starting to see more of a move away from horizontal concentration to vertical concentration. And you're really starting to see certain industries pull ahead. And we talked a little bit about why do we think we're seeing that. And we really think of it as three main drivers for where you're seeing a concentration of advanced deployment in Gen AI. First, each of the industries that we're seeing kind of that strong utilization has a large amount of digitized unstructured data. So for example, naming a few of the industries that have progressed quickest, there's health insurance. They have a lot of data on claims and clinical documents. In retail, you have lots of product catalogs. And then in manufacturing, you have engineering manuals. And then life sciences investments, you're seeing a lot of analyst research or market research to drive some of the Gen AI opportunities. Second, there's a prevalence of repetitive, high friction, and expensive processes. So there's really an opportunity to see true ROI in these areas and see immediate impact. And then lastly, you're seeing some very specific industry-specific needs and KPIs that as you look towards deploying Gen AI, you can benchmark performance to and see real value. So I wanted to share a little bit of kind of this evolution that we're already seeing. Started off with use cases, moving to strong vertical concentration, and then starting to see real progress from testing to true deployment. So here's the real question, what's next? So what's it going to take to make that same chart go all green in 1 year? And so, we've talked about this a lot, and there's, of course, dependencies and our investments our customers need to make in data, in governance, and security, but we really think is going to be the catalyst in the next year is Agentic AI. And the reason for that is that Gen AI has been a phenomenal assistant. Full disclosure, I used it a lot in this presentation, helped me with my notes, my speaking remarks, and just kind of guiding me through it, but it didn't do the presentation for me. And that's where Agentic AI eventually will come in, which is it turns it from supporting the work and being an assistant to doing the work. So I don't want to oversimplify this, right? There's a lot that goes into it, and there's a lot that's going to be needed to make Agentic AI as powerful as it can be, which is why we wanted to run this session about the value of partners. And we're going to talk a little bit, or a lot more about that in a few slides. But before we do that, I do want to hand it to Mark to go in a little bit deeper about what is Agentic AI and what makes it so powerful.
Awesome. All right, good afternoon. Like Priya, this is my 10th reInvent, but I've also never done the silent session, so it's new to me. I'm also usually the loudest guy in the room, so I'll try not to compete with the noise around me. For those, I know a few faces in the crowd, but for those who don't know me, my name is Mark Relf. I'm the director of the Data and AI Partner Go-to-Market organization. And it's a very fun job. I get to work with partners of all types all around the world. And our really core mission is how we work with our partner community to make them force multipliers for the amazing things our customers can do. And we're going to actually dig through that really key point about working with partners to help customers do amazing things. You're actually going to see as we go through some of the data here how critical that can be. But let's focus on Priya's question just for a second about the evolution of agentic. Now, all right, hot take. A lot of what's being called agentic, maybe up to this point, are maybe just really long prompts. That's my opinion. And the breaking point has been, look, Gen AI itself, which was essentially human initiated, often in a chat interface kind of form, maybe a few others, but it was a response to a request, highly focused on some sort of generative action, even if it's in an enterprise search scenario otherwise. It was really a tool of the user interfacing with that Gen AI application. And that was great. Don't get me wrong. I actually think there's a lot of generative AI use cases that large number of customers haven't even cracked the code on yet. So before we all rush on to agentic, there might be a lot of amazing work that can be done around Gen AI in your organization. But pretty quickly, and I bet a lot of you have had this experience as well, is that the Gen AI, simply interfacing with some frontier model to get cool answers wasn't quite enough. You kind of wish that that model had a little bit of access to your data, maybe had access to APIs, and along comes MCP as a nice way to give these models access to tools. And that's kind of great. So now you start to see more Gen AI deployments connected with these tools. It becomes far, far more useful. Now the deployments become a little bit more complex, right? You start to see creeping into this, it was simply, help me edit my document, help me write my essay. You don't need a lot of access to enterprise data to do that. But now you give it some tools, you are gonna start to think about, is my data formatted in a way that this works? Are people allowed to get that data? What's it costing me to get to that point? How complicated is it to maintain that architecture? But the scenarios definitely start to get more useful, and you start to see what is starting to look like an agentic workflow, or workflow at the very least, start to deploy at scale. We probably have all seen this in our organizations. If you're partners, you're probably doing a lot of this work. But now we tip over for I think there's a number of reasons. One, the models themselves start to get really great at using tools. They get really great at reasoning and specific capabilities. Things like reading documents, reading structured data, creating documents, doing a little bit of math, writing code when it can't. These models start to get really, really advanced. You then hand them a set of tools, and now you get this combination of a model that can actually reason around a problem because it's now armed with all of the tools that it needs. It has its innate capabilities, it has its enterprise data access, it has some maybe advanced access to some of your enterprise systems, your APIs or other interfaces, and you can actually start to set those agents to work. Now, the best place we've seen this is in software development. And if you want to come see me after the presentation, I've been flouting an app that I built for reInvent. I'm not a developer, but a coding agent helped me build something pretty awesome because it had access to GitHub, and it had access to a data layer, it had access to a compute layer, it could do all these things for me. It was really great at coding, and off it went based on my guidance. And that pattern now starts to play out in other scenarios as well. It's still early on. People are thinking about what is the breaking point between fully and semi-autonomous agents? Where did the humans have to be in the loop? How do you build the guardrails for safety and responsibility? How do those agents talk to each other? Do those agents need a kill switch if something goes horribly awry? How are you monitoring and maintaining? So it's starting to look an awful lot like other architectural patterns that we've seen. These starts to become essentially independent chunks of software that we need to think through all of the elements of compute and data and logging and observability and controls that you would see in other software systems. And then ultimately, when those agents start to really work autonomously, and I've seen some really amazing examples from our partners. I'll give you one. There's a security ISV that I've been working with. They're in like the DevOps space. And on staff, they used to have these they still have these response engineers, right? People who have been working in ops for their entire lives. They really know how to handle when things go wrong. And they took that experience and they built a set of agents based on that, a prompt just from their wise old incident response folks. And we're able to build agents that can now tackle this large percentage of the day-to-day incidents that they have come up. And do it autonomously. And it really fundamentally changes how their software works, how they implement with clients, how they deploy, and how they charge for those systems. So you start to see these autonomous agents all the time. And then the ultimate is multi-agent systems. What happens when one agent that's really great at something meets another agent that's really great at something? Those two agents start to work together. And I think you'll see across, if you go across the expo hall, you listen to a lot of the presentations this week, this multi-agent collaboration is actually a very hot topic with some emerging standards and architectural approaches to help you do that at scale. But that's probably still pretty early. What's interesting when we did this survey and we asked customers, like this path mapped out in the data. Like this is how a lot of customers felt that their journey was going as well. And we think it represents like our customers are moving to the right for sure, and our partners are following them as well. And what it means is, I think part of the excitement around agents is because they become the ROI and the business value derived from an agent is very different than just what we saw 2.5 years ago with the outset of Gen AI. You are now talking about increasing productivity, reducing time in processes, taking out costs, helping your customers in new and different ways, reimagining your businesses, changing or eliminating processes. Like these are the things that at the C-suite of an organization, like this is what rings true. And about 90% of the organizations that we talk to were looking to implement some sort of agentic approach in their organization over the next 6 to 12 months. And it's interesting because as great as Gen AI is, agentic AI requires a little bit more expertise, not necessarily technical expertise, but business expertise, right? You have to understand how the processes in an organization work, particularly when you can describe that process to an agent and set it loose on a goal. It's a very, very different approach, and that requires a level of business expertise. And like I said, they're far more transformational, and ultimately used correctly can lead to giving an organization a significant competitive advantage. So I won't linger too long on this slide because this is probably the one you'll see variations of this slide all week at reInvent. But if you're not familiar, like we spend a lot of time working with our partners so that they can help adopt our Agentic AI portfolio, that stack of technology that makes making agents as easy as possible, taking as much of that undifferentiated heavy lifting out. You take something like Agent Core, which brings you not only just compute, but access to things like memory and observability and access to tools at scale for your developers. And no matter what sort of stage you and your customers are at, whether it's you need super deep access because you're training models, you're doing something in AI that's never been done before, and you need to be doing that open heart surgery level of AI and access to the raw infrastructure, whether you're looking for more of a serverless approach to help your developers move fast in agentic AI development, or if you want to buy an application off the shelf, something like AWS or Amazon Connect or Kiro. These are the packaged pieces of software that we provide. And then, not to mention all of the software from our partners as well. This is the portfolio that we're talking about. So we spend a ton of time with our partners, helping them build expertise, if you're a system integrator, build a practice. If you're an ISV, build this under the hood of what you are building for your customers and so forth. The use cases, and I mentioned a couple, the use cases are really interesting. So we looked through the survey and 3 really stood out. I don't think this is particularly surprising. It's very much an extension of what we saw last year. In some ways, it was an extension of what people were trying to do with Gen AI, and we're sort of running into the limitations of what Gen AI can do, and where Agentic AI is maybe a little bit better applied to seeing the business value behind these use cases. But it is things like customer support is a great example, right? So support agents, lead qualification, logistics optimization. You see a ton of customers working on the support side. Helping customers can be at times, it can be a great job when you help a customer solve a problem. It can be occasionally a thankless job if you're on the phone with someone who's really upset with you. And if you can use these tools to make sure all of your customers are delighted, interesting things happen is that the people involved in customer support get applied to helping maybe your most at-risk customers or your highest value customers. And also they want to stay and help because they have the tools at their disposal to do so. The middle, software development. This is obviously huge. I think the power of the coding assistants at this point is sort of unmatched. It's absolutely remarkable what you can do with these tools. And in the hands of an amateur like me, you can create something amazing. In the hands of a professional, you can be building at scale and velocity that we haven't really seen before. But what's actually interesting in the middle is you start to see a lot more sort of modernization projects or migration between platforms assisted by these AI-driven tools. And then there's general productivity. This is what all of us are probably working on day to day. You know, the business users in all of our organizations, you want really great enterprise search. You want a calendar agent that helps you. You want to be able to track your to-dos and project management across teams. You want to be able to build workflows. You know, for reInvent, I have a quick suite powered agent that is helping me all day long prep for the next thing that I have to do. This is my third speaking event of the day, and and it's only Monday for the rest of the week. It helps me understand the customers I'm going to see, flags travel time, and I've built that because I've got a knowledge base of my entire week. That's the kind of general productivity people like to see, and we have a number of partners spending time in that space. I'll give you a couple of examples. Our partner Reply worked with Totmia, I think is the correct pronunciation, but if you don't know, let's pretend that's the correct pronunciation. So the customer in this case, they sell vacation packages, and it's like camping type vacation packages. And they're running this problem where their existing system was like super inaccurate. It was very slow. It had incredibly bad latency. They weren't really getting the matches that their customers needed. And Reply came in and helped them build a new AI-driven agent that helps curate these vacation options, 65% faster bookings, 40% increase in booking completions, and that was built on Bedrock and Agent Core. Another example, our good friends at Anthropic work with GoDaddy to transform their DevOps infrastructure. So they actually have over 600 developers at GoDaddy using their Go Code platform, which is built on Claude. And it's really helped drive a new sort of level of software development quality inside of GoDaddy. Or Genpact worked with Apex on financial crime detection and triage. This is where agents actually work really well, when you can take these kind of workflows that require where the agents are really great at, pulling a claim, looking at an application, monitoring events, and applying at scale. It might be, the flags looking for problems or fraud. And in Apex's case, they were able to take out false positives from their old system. So their old system would say this, they discover that it's not. And they were able to help increase by 60% how quickly they were able to resolve the cases. Another great agent example built on Agent Core. So this is the kind of things that customers are looking for when you see these big increases in productivity and cost savings and the way you do things. And it's backed by sets of partners that have built deep expertise in that stack that I talked about. So we've talked a little bit about how agentic is evolving. Let's now overlay some of the results from our survey about some of the things our partners have to think about because their customers are looking to them for help. So one of the things here is that, agentic AI is going to build on all of the progress in Gen AI around, things like model evaluation and business case creation and even change management. I think we're at a point where, look, one of the number one blockers to AI adoption in customer organizations is people don't want to use it. And people don't think that their processes can change. And not thinking about the people is a huge blocker, but that's not necessarily new. I think what agents really bring and what partners and customers need to think about is this skills gap, right? Agents are going to require very business savvy development. We had a roundtable this morning with a bunch of partners, and some are here, and can make sure the story is true. But they were saying, look, like one of the biggest things that they have to do with customers is a lot of sort of an evaluation stage and a lot of consultative help for them to understand where agentic AI can help in their organization, because they just don't know yet. Like that is actually a big gap that they have, and they are looking for help. And then when you think about the power of these agents and what they may have access to, whether you're a customer, you're going to be thinking about this a lot. And if you're a partner, you better be really good at is thinking about, is the data strategy right? You know, is my data estate at a point where agents can actually access and use that data well? Is there strong governance around my data? Have I thought through the legal and security and compliance implications, particularly in a regulated industry, that these agents might touch? So this is the kind of thing that is really starting to appear as a top concern for the partners. What's also really interesting out of the survey, so 90% of the customers we talked to who had done agentic work had used a partner, which was up from 73% in the Gen AI days. Super interesting, the reliance, and it was cited because of this level of expertise. And 90% of the customers expected to maintain or increase their usage of partners for those same reasons going forward. So as you know, a partner in the crowd where you have that expertise, customers need your help and they are looking and want your help. So that's very interesting. The second is, you know, 35% of the orgs thought that they were going to be relying on partners more because they've actually, and this is the feedback we got, they tried something, it didn't work, sort of stumbled, they never get out of proof of concept, and they realized, hey, we're going to need some help to bring this to production at scale. Super interesting, I think, for customers, you know, how much help is required that they're asking for, maybe as they build their own skills to maybe one day get to that point, and for partners just to know, hey, customers are looking for a lot of help. So there's a few places, you know, we've talked about, so security, governance, and compliance, just how these agents work at a baseline, and observability are sort of the top areas that customers in the survey identified as areas where they are looking for partners to assist them. And so if you're an ISV, if you're an SI, it's a huge opportunity to build a practice that has security capabilities that can help customers build out that governance, that understands the power of a multi-agent architecture and actually how to get there, and understands how to provide the level of observability and monitoring that customers expect. If you're an ISV, you have this chance just to build this into your product, because a lot of customers might just want to buy this off the shelf with the security built in, the auditing built in, a level of orchestration between different frameworks, and all of that monitoring and awareness built directly into your product. Now, for an ISV, this means agentifying your product, which then as a if you put then your customer hat on as that ISV, means that you might have a lot of work to do yourself, and we're there to help you. Another example is IBM. They did some work with a CPG customer who they weren't able to name here, but that customer was running into problems on their marketing side of just how their marketing processes worked, and it was all around legal reviews of like copy and images and things like that. And IBM was able to decrease sort of between 39 and 54 days the optimization on the time, 57% process improvement in terms of getting these projects approved. And then the accuracy of the agent was actually quite high, so they weren't running into problems where the agent didn't know what they needed to know. All right, last thing, and I'm going to turn it back to Priya. And it's going to go back to the ISVs, mostly the ISVs. I think if you're an SI or if you're a customer in the audience, I have this is Mark's advice. I think the agentic AI wave is going to have some significant ramifications on how you build software today. So one is, human versus AI design. Most SaaS software is built for a person to sit in front of a computer and use it. If the future customer of your product are all agents, why do you need that same front end? You have to radically rethink the UI for the humans when they need to interface, but the UI for the agent is going to be very, very, very different. And you have to start thinking about that, because I think most of our developers are still thinking in there's a person sitting in front of it mode. An agent can be given different sets of goals, right? So your software today might be, click this button to create an order. That's what its goal was. It was driven by a person. But if those agents can actually react and reason across a bunch of different problems, does the purpose of your software or internal system fundamentally change? Go and seek out fraud in a system. Go and seek out optimization in a claims process is not something that you usually ask your SaaS product to do on its own. You usually have somebody guiding it. Your core competency, and I might be speaking to some of the SIs in the room, and definitely the customers, might shift from coding the thing to curating the thing, right? Context engineering in an agentic world is about how you coaxed these systems into following the patterns, giving it the tools so that it can reason and act in the right way, is very different than hammering out hundreds of lines of code in a more deterministic system. And that's just a core competency shift. And last, whether you're selling something or for the customers in the audience, you might be buying something, how you purchase software might really change, right? Are agents going to be charged by the token? Personally, I don't think so. I think eventually the value of what that agent does and the outcome of what those systems do are ultimately what customers are going to want to pay for, and you're going to have to be ready to deliver on those outcomes. So some key considerations for all of you as you think about moving into an agentic world. Okay. With that, let's turn over, talk a little bit about the path we take partners through, and I'll hand it back to Priya for that part.
Thank you. Okay, so we've talked about where we're coming from to where we're going and the importance of agentic AI. We've talked about why partners play such a critical role. So let me go back briefly to my introduction. I said, okay, my role is to support partner programs in data and AI. So what does that really mean? That means is I have a team that lives and breathes by this chart basically every day. So we think about what is everything that our partners need to do to be successful in supporting our customers in adopting AI. And then we work on building the resources and the programs that our partners can use and our customers can benefit from against each of these steps. And this is a combination of best practices, it's a combination of programs, and then as well as a long list of resources. And as much as I would love to sit down and actually walk you through every step, we have and I'm not exaggerating, we have a 60-page booklet that goes through every single one of the steps and resources to make sure that our partners are really taking advantage of the depth of programs available to them through AWS. I'm not going to be able to do that in the short time we have left. But what I want to focus on is some things that came top of mind to me when I was looking at our survey and our results and going, okay, good, I'm glad we have this program, or I'm glad we have this best practice, or I'm glad we make this recommendation to partners, because what we're hearing from customers says this is important, or they need some support or help here. So I'm going to walk you through a couple of these boxes that I've highlighted and take you a little bit through what we call the build, market, sell, and grow phase of the AI partner journey. So first, let me talk about what we're seeing around how customers want to buy or how they want to consume agentic AI solutions. And what we're seeing here is a pretty strong balance between buy, build, and what we're calling a hybrid approach. And while we don't have year-over-year comparisons, looking at Gen AI, we are seeing a slight, in this data point, we are seeing actually a slight shift to buy 32% here than we do in kind of our more mature Gen AI phases. And we saw the same thing in early adoption in AI, which is our customers don't want to go out and build everything from scratch right now. What they want to do is experience agentic AI capabilities in the applications that they are comfortable using today, or go to experts in a specific industry and area and consume agentic AI capabilities versus being responsible for building that. And while that does, in theory, in some ways translate to, okay, ISVs, we need you to go build, to build applications that our customers can buy, I would actually say it's the same thing for our SIs as well right now. I had some great conversations this morning with a few SIs, and we're hearing this pattern which says, look, the more we can build up front, 90% structure that our customers can leverage, then the quicker we can get them to market, and that's what customers want today. And so as you think about what you are bringing to market, think about this mix of having solutions that our customers can leverage, looking at you guys as expert of where do I need to integrate agentic AI and how do I do it, as well as giving them the customization option through the balanced hybrid offerings, and then leaving some capacity for true custom development, especially when you start getting into the more complex agentic AI workflows. So let's talk about what we do for you as AWS to support you through this. So first and foremost, you're going to hear this term hopefully a lot, which is the AI and Data Knowledge Center. It is where we house all of our resources for our AWS partners around AI and data. We actually launched it about 3 years ago here at reInvent, and it was originally named the AI COE, the Center of Excellence for AI, through Partner Central. And it's actually been one of our #1 resource used by AWS partners to be able to get up-to-date information on AWS services and features. And we launched it because we are actually innovating at just an unheard of pace. I think last year there was a stat that said that we launched double the number of features than any other cloud provider in AI. And in order for our partners to be true experts, you have to understand and know in depth how each of these AI features and services are working. So we want to make sure that you have those resources available to you. Similarly, you're going to see your customer research, a lot of what we referenced here today, on the hub so that you guys can work backwards from what customers are saying and incorporate that into your build strategy and your go-to-market strategy. And don't worry, I will give you QR codes at the end so you know where to go to access all this information. And then lastly, and Mark talked a lot about this too, which is, yes, we need to support our customers adopting agentic AI, adopting AI, but we also need to incorporate it into our own solutions and our development practices, because there is going to be a little bit of a race here with being able to quickly support our customers' ability to adopt AI, and they're going to look to our partners to do that, which means we can't necessarily go through long development cycles. We were talking about this actually at dinner last night, which is, we start to hear now that a lot of our startups these days are kind of releasing and building new capabilities with 1, 2, 3 software developers versus a whole group of individuals. And that's kind of the innovation that we're expecting from our partners, to continuously build, innovate, and deploy agentic capabilities that our customers can consume. And of course, an important investment that we want to make here is funding. And so what we do provide for our partners is what we call innovation credits and sandbox credits. And these are funding and resources for our partners to be able to just play and test and build with our AWS services. And I will let you in on a secret here too. It is our most underutilized resourcing, our funding program at AWS. So if you are an AWS partner, please check what funding you have available to you, and please use it. With the amount of features and products we're releasing, there's no reason that you shouldn't be deploying the credits available to you at 100% and then coming and asking for more, and we'd be happy to give you more to do so. So that's kind of in that early build stage. When you're thinking about building, you also have to start thinking about how are you going to go to market. And the other thing that really kind of popped out in our data survey and that stuck with me, which is the stat, which is that 80% of customers are likely to use a marketplace in the next 6 to 12 months to buy their agentic solutions. So for those of you that don't know, we have an AWS marketplace that has been growing for the last 2 to 3 years. It's actually become a great go-to-market channel for many of our ISV partners. And then just recently, we launched the AI agents and tools section in AWS Marketplace. And that has become one of the fastest growing listings or areas of listings that we have on the marketplace today. It's also an area that we continue to invest in to provide resources to our partners. So whether that is exclusive funding resources, it's training, it's guidance on how to price and support, it's procurement services for our customers to make it easy for them to transact and to purchase their solutions on AWS. And for those of you that will, hopefully be here all week at reInvent, I've heard a rumor that there's going to be a great section on Ruba's keynote that goes into a lot of the details around Marketplace and some of the new features and solutions that they're going to be launching through it. So if you do not, for our partners in the room, if you do not have a Marketplace strategy, I would strongly recommend looking at it and understanding how you're going to integrate Marketplace into your go-to-market perspective, and think about how you build your products around that to integrate with our Marketplace, and to think about your Marketplace pricing in a way that makes sense for that go-to-market channel. Customers in the room, if you have not visited it, I strongly recommend it. You're going to see a lot of our biggest partners there. And actually what's really cool, also a lot of our innovative startups. So it's a great way to really explore and see what's already available to you in the agentic AI world. The next thing we talk about, so we kind of, jumping around a little bit, but I've walked a little bit through some of the key points that stuck out to me on the build part of the AI journey. And then we want to talk a little bit about market. And this one is close to my heart. I'm not a marketer, but I spent a lot of time talking to our AWS partners about what they do, what they offer. And I'm going to share this. I did not start my career in tech. I actually started on the .com side. And sometimes it's really confusing when we talk about our technology, and it's really confusing when our partners talk about, okay, this is what we do. And a lot of what you're finding today is a lot of your buyers are no longer necessarily deep tech experts, they're business buyers. And so that means you have to take a little bit different approach to how we talk about our solutions and our products. And honestly, we've learned that as well too in the AWS over the last couple of years, and how we message and talk about our AWS solutions. And so one of the best practices that I want to emphasize here is that when we think about go-to-market messaging, it looks a little bit different in this space than it may have done in other spaces in technology, I should say. And I like to think of it as having three really important phases. The first step right now is education. I don't know if you guys remember this, but when Gen AI first came out in the market, I can't tell you how many times I had a partner or a customer come and be like, I'm doing this awesome thing in Gen AI. And Mark kind of alluded to this earlier. It wasn't Gen AI. It was good old-fashioned AI, which is great. There's nothing wrong about it, but people are still trying to learn and understand what is Gen AI, and now what is agentic AI on top of it. So being able to help them understand what that technology is and what it can do for their business is actually a really important part in all of our go-to-market messages. Second, building on that and really being able to explain your differentiation value is important. What we find, and we're seeing this a lot in Gen AI today now, is that what used to be a partner's value proposition is turning into the category value proposition. And now they really have to go deeper and say, okay, how do I personally do this differently? So it's not just to say I do Gen AI or I do agentic AI, but here's my flavor of how I approach it. And here's my framework for approaching and driving success for our customers. And so really understanding and building in not just what the technology is, but how does you as a partner layer in your individual value proposition is really critical. And then lastly, it's the better together messaging. And this is really important because you all as our partners and our customers choose AWS for a reason. And there are investments that we make into our products to make sure that we are providing the highest level of security, ensuring that you guys can scale, your customers can scale their applications to go to reach their entire organizations. And you want to be able to help your customers understand that technology under the hood, or that technology that you're partnering with, is actually going to be able to make them reach their goals and their ROI goals more quickly. And so we've had to, in the last couple of years, I spent a lot of time working with partners building this messaging plan. And I'm happy to say that we've also put a lot of programs and resources in place for our AWS partners to be able to leverage these resources so that they can build these plans. And that is working with your PMMs if you have them in PDMs. It's leveraging MDF funding, which is marketing funding that is both for, a lot of our partners use it for their campaigns, but you can also use it to work with agencies, to work with consultants to kind of help you build that right messaging. And then obviously integrating us into our campaigns as well. And I did skip this point, but it kind of ties to the education component, which is when we did our survey, there was an interesting fact that approximately 40% of people surveyed that were experienced Gen AI users said they were doing agentic AI today. And then when we had them actually explain the use cases they were doing, we'd say about 10% of them qualify as true agentic use cases. And so that kind of gives you that perspective of why education is so important. Okay, now the thing that I get the most questions on, the most requests from our partners is, how do I work with AWS's field teams? How do I align and how do I get AWS to support and create a co-sell motion with me? And one of the things that I would tell you from a best practice perspective is having a very clear point of view of where your expertise are and what industries that you can really support and focus is probably the number one success factor in having a strong co-sell program in alignment with our AWS field. Over the last couple of years, we have shifted our teams to be vertically aligned because of what we're seeing in adoption trends and patterns and customer needs of having deep expertise that understand not just the technology, but the applications and the requirements in their industries. The hardest thing for us, and sadly I hear it a lot, but the hardest thing for us is when I sit down with the partner and say, okay, what do you do? And the answer is, I do everything. That's actually really hard. It's like sitting down at Cheesecake Factory, and I love Cheesecake Factory, but it's sitting down at Cheesecake Factory and figuring out what to order. When you've got 30 pages of menu and they cover everything, it's really hard to figure out what are they actually good at. And so my ask to all our partners in the room is have a strong understanding of the industries you want to prioritize, make those connections with our AWS teams that are vertically aligned, and build clear messaging to your customers that earns your trust, that you know their industries, that you've had success in those industries, and that you can really support what they need to drive ROI in their specific industries. And again, a lot of the resources that we have available are deep industry level research that you can kind of work backwards from your customer needs in those markets. But we also give all of our partners full access to our sales plays, which is exactly what our AWS field teams are trained on. So whatever we are telling our field team is what we're seeing is the biggest opportunity in your industries, we share that with our partners so that our customers in the room can kind of hear one consistent message and really understand what we see collectively as the right opportunity. And then we have a lot of opportunities to bring and share your vertical or your industry-specific collateral and industry-specific resources to our field when there is that strong industry message. And then lastly, this is a significant area for funding, and it's not necessarily specifically industry-specific funding, but we do a lot of investment in funding. So customers in the room and partners, if you know a customer that wants to leverage a partner, that sees value in leveraging a partner, we have a lot of resources to help minimize the cost of leveraging those partners, and so want to make sure that everybody is familiar with them and that you're helping your customers understand them as well. Okay, now the last thing that I'm going to highlight kind of on our AI journey map is the importance of validations. And this was actually a really interesting data point, but one of the things we saw is what are the key purchasing criteria that customers see when looking at partners? So what are they looking for when picking what partner? And some of the things that popped out to us is a proven track record, having dedicated agentic AI practice teams and really having specialized AI talents, and then making sure that the cloud provider is recommending and will stand by those partners. And the way we do that at AWS for our partners is through badges and validation. So at the top level is our AI competency, which for those of you partners in the room, you should really invest. If AI is a place that you're going to play in, then getting our AWS competency shows that we have worked with you to validate your solutions, validate your customer references, validate your practices and capabilities, and it helps your customers earn trust that we are working together and that you have strong expertise in these areas. But I wouldn't just stop there. The other area too is at the employee level. So making sure you have a plan and a strategy for asking your employees or having goals and KPIs around learning badges so that they're continuously staying abreast of our AWS offerings, our best practices, and what we're seeing in the market as well. And customers, I would encourage you to look for partners that have made these investments to partner with on your in your AI journeys, AI adoption journeys. And with that, I just kind of want to highlight too, we work closely with a lot of partners. Loca is a partner that I have personally worked with. Many of us have worked with over the last few years. They are an AI competency partner. They are part of our new Agentic AI competency launch. They have several AWS Marketplace listings, and they're a really great example of what success can look like when you really partner and use all the different elements of AWS's AI journey. They've got great success story. One of their customers, Vestmark, really just recently worked with them to launch a wealth management advisor workflow to enable them to reduce proposal generation by over 95%, going from, I believe it's 10 clicks in 5 minutes to one single ask by an agent in about 10 seconds, so significantly reducing 15 seconds proposal generation. And so again, great example of both just success and driving customer success, but also a great example of a partner that has worked and partnered with us to fully leverage all the resources and opportunities and has seen the growth and value coming out of it. Okay, so I can't now leave. I've teased this a lot, but here is the QR code for the AI Data and Knowledge Center. Here you'll find a lot of the resources that I referenced earlier, whether that is the customer survey, that is the playbook, or it's, especially after this week, resources around all our AWS services and launches, if you and your teams want to go deep quickly and make sure that you are kind of up to speed on everything that we have to offer. And then the last thing I would say, or the last couple of QR codes that I would share, both for our customers in the room and our partners, is make sure that you are discoverable to your partners. So make sure you are listed as a GenAI competency partner by getting your validations, and then make sure you have your offerings available to your customers on the AWS Agentic Marketplace. And with that,
if you are a partner in the audience, thank you. If you are a customer in the audience, go meet some partners. There's an awesome expo hall full of them doing amazing things. Priya and I really appreciate you all taking the headphone time with us today. Hope you have a great rest of the reInvent. Thanks.
thank you.